Thank you, Jackie. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. This is such an exciting event. And WLKY, on behalf of WLKY, I'd like to say thank you, and thank you to Norton Healthcare for allowing us the opportunity to be part of such a wonderful event. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker for the night. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Now a resident of Sarasota, Florida, John Baumann lived in Louisville for more than 20 years. At the age of 54, he's already led a full life and believes he's achieved more since being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease than before his diagnosis in 2002. After graduating summa cum laude from the University of Massachusetts and earning his law degree from Cornell Law School, Baumann worked as an attorney for 26 years, representing several large corporations and a private firm. He's well known for his work, of course, as an inspirational speaker and author and guest commentator for CNN Headline News Primetime. He also left his mark as a faculty member at the University of Louisville until 2013 and was selected Most Inspiring Professor in 2010. Baumann is an example of how embracing adversity can have a very positive impact on our lives. He shared his message at more than 70 symposiums in 5 countries, including the World Parkinson Congress in Montreal in 2013. His presentations and his workshops motivate participants through 12 action steps, including exercise, talk of exercise, healthy living, and a positive attitude. Baumann considers himself healthier now than before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and he believes that you can be as well. He's an accomplished writer. His book, Decide Success, You Ain't Dead Yet, has been endorsed by a former governor, I love that name, corporate CEOs and executives from the healthcare and nonprofit sectors. He's also contributed to Ken Blanchard and Deepak Chopra's Roadmap to Success and other books. He's produced DVDs and CDs and hosted an internet talk show on success. And if that wasn't enough, Baumann is also the chair emeritus of the Make-A-Wish Foundation's board of directors, board member of the Parkinson Support Center, and an appointed ambassador of the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I had the pleasure of spending just a few minutes backstage with John and his wife Bernadette. To say the very least, I could see in just a few minutes why he's such an inspiration to so many people. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our very special speaker for tonight, John Baumann.
When you have a life-changing event, your blinders are removed. How much money you make doesn't matter anymore. What type of car you drive doesn't matter anymore. How big your home is doesn't matter anymore. You've got a life-changing event to deal with. And it gives you a great perspective. And that's the perspective that I like to take every day of my life. Take a new perspective, take off the blinders. Eternal optimist. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. It's a great story from my childhood. We were building a fort when I was 10 years old in my backyard out of some old fencing. And we could only fit 2 people, so me and my best friend were in this fort, and my brother came by and asked to come in the fort, and I said, well, there's no room for you. And that wasn't very nice. Well, he went over and picked up a rock and hit me over the head. And there was blood everywhere. My mother freaked out. We went in. I had 10 stitches. My brother tells a story it was 2, but it was really 10. So it was time for my brother to go to bed. He went to bed. It was time for me to go to bed. They didn't put me in bed. Time for my oldest sister to go to bed. She went to bed. I got to stay up because they were checking for a concussion. And then they brought out ice cream. And the story goes, I said, this is the luckiest day of my life. I got hit in the head with a rock, but it was the luckiest day of my life. That's eternal optimist. And I try to bring that to the life-changing events, keeping a sense of humor, keeping as much positive energy as possible. You've got to embrace challenges, embrace adversity. No life-changing event is 100% good or 100% bad. And I'll give you an example that I haven't used ever in any speech. Winning the lottery sounds like a 100% good life-changing event, right? If you've seen the statistics of how many people go bankrupt afterward, how many people commit suicide afterward, how many people lose all their money, how many people are robbed and get killed, it's unbelievable. And that's supposed to be a 100% great life-changing event. Well, everything is gray. There's no black and white. And if you can find the gray, or more appropriately, find the silver lining in the dark cloud, you're going to be much better off. My mother said to me a couple years after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, she said, well, John, you know everything happens for a reason. And I said to her, hold on, time out, Mom. You've always said growing up, everything happens for the best. I've heard it 100 times. Why would you change that to everything happens for a reason? And she said, because you got Parkinson's and I can't imagine that's for the best. Wow. This wonderful woman changed her best phrase because of my Parkinson's. I made a decision that day to become an inspirational speaker, to prove to her that getting Parkinson's was for the best. And that's what I truly believe. Depression. Depression is a huge issue with people with Parkinson's for two reasons. One is you got Parkinson's. That's depressing. Second is dopamine is the pleasure center in the brain. You have less dopamine. It's a chemical issue. The first time I felt depression, I was driving my car and I went into the deepest, darkest hole. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck is this? And about 20 minutes later I came out. I didn't care if I lived or died. And I came out of that hole and I said, that was awful. And about 2 weeks later, it happened again. And I said, well, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not shy about this. I'm going to go see the doctor. And they put me on antidepressant. And I've been fine since. So whatever it takes, you need to do to deal with depression. When Robin Williams took his own life, partly due to being diagnosed with Parkinson's, Connie Leonard came and interviewed me. And I said to her, it's a shame I didn't get a chance to talk to him because I think I could have made a difference. I was in San Antonio 2 weeks ago, and you have to look for moments where you can make a difference in people's lives, I believe. I finished my speech, and this man and his sister came over to talk to me. And I said, well, which one of you has Parkinson's? He said, neither of us. My wife does. And she really wanted to be here, but she couldn't make it. She's in a wheelchair. And she didn't feel up to it. I said, what are you doing? What are you doing for the next couple hours? I got 3 hours for my flight. He said, nothing. I said, let's go. So I went and visited with her. And when he left the room, she said to me, I'm thinking about committing suicide. And I said to her, first of all, what I want to say is that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I think those are telling words. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I said to her, I know you're an English teacher. Whose picture is that on the wall? She said, those are my grandchildren. I said, have you taught them everything you need to teach them? She said, no. I said, then you have something to live for. Wow. Bring the mountain to Muhammad. And that made me feel great. I may not be able to make as much money as a lawyer, but I call them inspirational bucks. Every time I'm able to affect someone's life, it's another inspirational buck. And I feel great about that. Just keep moving forward. This is what I tell myself. When I have bad days, when I'm stiff, I'm a little bit off right now, as you can tell. I can never time it perfectly right. Forgive me, but that's just the way it is. But just keep moving forward is what my wife and I say to each other in these situations. And any sort of life-changing event. And when I talk about a life-changing event, I'm talking about the death of a child, death of a loved one, loss of a job, divorce, whatever you consider to be an adverse life-changing event, just keep moving forward. Just put one foot in front of the other. What brings this to mind is the serenity prayer. Because what you need to do is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You can influence change in your life. You can make a decision. Change is going to happen. The only constant is change. Everyone together. The only constant is change. Whether you decide to influence that change or not is really up to you. My son once asked me, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? I said, let me think about it. He said, oh, Dad, why do you always have to think about things? Why don't you just answer the question? I said, well, I'm a lawyer, and I like to give thoughtful answers. So I came back to him the next day and I said, I'll tell you what the best thing that ever happened in my life was the first time I held you, first time I held your sister, and the first time I saw Bernadette ready to walk down the aisle and marry me. I said, you know what the worst thing is? Nothing. There is no worst thing. Your sister didn't die. My daughter was diagnosed with a diaphragmatic hernia, which gave her a 40% chance of living. And I can remember envisioning her funeral, sitting in the parking lot at Cozair Children's, banging my head on the steering wheel, wailing like never before, imagining what her funeral would be like. And it didn't happen. Wow. It didn't happen.
And I know some people here are caregivers, and for some of them that may sometimes get frustrated or emotional themselves. Any advice that you would have? Or obviously Bernadette is a huge support for you. So Bernadette, maybe you could come up here too and share a little bit from the support end.
This is her forte. This is where she shines.
I actually do have the wonderful opportunity to address caregivers in most of the Parkinson's symposiums that we attend around the country and around the world. And when we attend these symposiums, I get so much out of them just from the educational standpoint, but also from the supportive standpoint from other caregivers and what they're going through. What I just picked up just recently, we were in New Orleans, and I never really thought of it this way, but as a care partner, I like to call myself, we're partners in this together. So the relationship, the dichotomy of the relationship sometimes changes. John May is my husband, so he's the man of the house, and he does things around the house. But oftentimes he's unable to do that. So the roles start to change. So as the wife, you start to feel a lot of those emotional roller coaster symptoms that John spoke about earlier. The denial, the anger, the depression, the fear, some of those feelings of, wait, I didn't really sign up for this. And I think it's important for caregivers to understand that reaching out to the support groups and realizing that you're not in this alone and getting that understanding that you can find tips to get through those times in your life where you are feeling really depressed or that you are feeling alone, that you can really get the help that you need. And it might be clinical also, where you need to go to a doctor or a support group or psychologist or a psychiatrist in that moment, and it will help. So
isn't that great?
It's great.
She's such a better speaker than I am.
No. But there also is another thing that I'd like to say, and I call it the 30-minute rule. For any caregiver, I also give them that 30-minute rule, and that's a 30-minute time frame within the day to do whatever it is that brings you your joy, whether it is calling your best friend from high school, whether it's hanging out with your grandchildren, whether it is gardening or painting, doing your favorite exercise video at home. You really do need to carve out that time for yourself so that you can be even better caregiver than you already are.
Or drinking bourbon on the rocks.
I'm, for one, diagnosed about 2.5 years ago. Had it for years, probably. I'm better off today than I was when I diagnosed, definitely. Meds, exercise. But the main thing I wanted to say was probably wouldn't have been diagnosed like that if it wasn't for Norton's. So I want to thank Norton's for doing this and other things.
Is that it for questions? Okay. On behalf of Norton Healthcare and WLKY and everyone here, let's say thank you to Mr. Baumann. Give him a big round of applause. You're such an inspiration. And a thank you to Bernadette as well. Thank you for being part of this.